Kia ora everybody, so I'll call the meeting to order and just to note continuing an acknowledgement to the Hau Kainga for welcoming and hosting us today. Just also noted that prior to us going in for I was going to say a cup of tea, that wasn't a cup of tea, but for a kai, we had a karakia to whakatikau our kōrero. So we'll move straight into it, and I'll for the sanity of the support staff, I'll stick to the agenda to read my notes. I promise. Okay. So we'll start with apologies. Call for any apologies for absence, lateness. I have two apologies for absence, Martire Duncan and Destiny Leaf. Any other apologies?
Mr. Chair, just one from me to leave early at 11:30, please.
Right, and we've got an apology from Puiraki to leave. It has to leave at 11:30, and Commissioner Shadrach Walston is going to leave at 12. So, with no other apologies, can I call for a mover that those apologies be accepted? Seconder. Bill Bosley, all in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Public forum, there is none booked. Acceptance of late items. We have the Chairman's report, which is late, which will be tabled. I just have to confess that wasn't the original report I'd written, but given the significance of today in terms of Te Ranga and the acknowledgement of the awards that Council and received, I changed the report, and I'll table my the report that I had written for today at next meeting. Now, can I call for a mover that the late item, the Chairman's report, be accepted? Shad, second. See, you seconded that, Steve? Yes, Steve. Okay. So all in favour? Carried. There is no confidential business to be transferred to the open forum. Are there any requests for change to order of business? None. We'll move to confirmation of minutes. So have we now packed the minutes of our last meeting, which was at Maunga Tapu Marae.
I'm happy to move.
Moved Commissioner Tolley, seconder Whitty. All in favour? Carried. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Call for any declarations of conflict. None. Ka pai. Hoi anō, kei tahaere tonu tātou. Now we move to agenda item 9.1. Tuku atu te rākau kia kōtau, Ngāti Whakaue. Nei rā, kia kōtau e kōrero kia mātou, kia tātou hoki.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Whenua tēnā te Whenua, nō te runa rā o Ngāti Whakaue ki Makitua hau. It's my absolute pleasure to be presenting on behalf of our wonderful rōpū and our presenting to you on the mahi that we're doing here in Makitua. So just joining the mahi that was given to you this morning. Welcome to the great metropolis of Makitua. It's certainly our heart and our place, and we're very proud of what we achieve here in Makitua. I'm also acknowledge that we've got Tapuika and Ngāti Pūkeo in the room, so much of my kōrero will be whakaue centric, and so I'm just inviting if they want to jump in and add their pieces in towards the end, they're most welcome to. Although I've got a really exciting kaupapa to talk about, and that's one of the collective, collaborative projects that we've done, all of us together, so I'll get onto that in a minute. So, you know, the whakatauki that guides our mahi is he runga te taiao, he runga te iwi. If the environment is well, the people are well. And there's variations of that whakatauki that guide people's mahi all around the place. And it really is, it's the core. If it's good for Papatūānuku, let's do it. If it's not good for Papatūānuku, why do it? And there's lots of things that we do in this day and age where we bend ourselves to try and make things good for Papatūānuku, but at the end of the day, sometimes we just have to say, this isn't working and this isn't the right thing to do. Because if the environment's not well, we're not well. So in terms of our Ngāti Whakaue mahi, there's three main streams of work. We're still doing claims. We've got the Marine and Coastal Act mahi, we've got Treaty of Waitangi claims, so that sucks up, still, generations later, still sucking up so much of our energy and our time and our resources, so we're still doing claims. Some of them, unfortunately, are new claims, where we have entities and organisations that just don't understand where the line is, and they cross it, and here we go again, lodging a new claim. We have to lodge a new claim to push back and say, actually, you're not allowed to do that. So that's one of our work streams, is claims. Another one of our work streams is taiao, and I'm really privileged to have two of our tangata miharo in terms of our mahi for the taiao here, which I'll introduce them in a minute. So we do lots of mahi with the taiao, and we do lots of partnerships in terms of our mahi with the taiao. And then our other piece of work is our climate change work, which I'll be presenting for you in a minute. Actually, how about can you guys introduce yourselves, please?
Tēnā tātou. Ko te mio kia hen tōku ingoa, ko te nunu waku hono tauranga mana ka kia nei ko hemi. Ahau ngā mihi nuni kia koutou. Nau mai haro mai ki roti tō tātou nei whare. Nau mai haro mai ki tēnei tō tātou kāinga ara te ihu tō tātou waka. Ko aku mahi I roti wenei mo te runanga e pāna ki ngā mahi ako. Ko hau te pau mātauranga, te pau ako. Me ngā aroaro ki rā mea mo te taia. Nā koina hoki o mātou nei mahi kia whakahapai atu wa tātou tamariki. I te taiao, mā te taiao, mā wera, ngā pukenga kia tū mai mo te taia. So, welcome everybody. And it's nice out here, mahi tū.
So Jimmy's core mahi is around education, but that's education in a Māori, mātauranga, iwi sense, and connecting or reconnecting our whānau with our knowledge. And Rewe's job, well, he's the Māori man. His job is to ensure that our Māori is retained. And if you, on the straight going back out towards Tauranga on the left-hand side, you'll see a beautiful wetland with lots of native plants. And yeah, 10 years ago there was a drain. It was a drain full of rubbish, and there has been so much mahi that's gone into that. And we haven't, of course, done it by ourselves. We've done it in collaboration with councils, with our iwi partners here as well. We are fortunate to have boots on the ground, and the other iwi, they do have like environmental positions and education positions, and those positions are really, really important for our engagement with the likes of yourselves. So government policy chops and changes, but generally there's enough money to resource that because we don't have any of our own income. But that's something for you guys to be mindful of when you're engaging with us, is to ensure that we've got the capacity, and I do think that the onus is on you to help us have that capacity to some extent as well. I want to go through our Makatu climate change plan. This was an awesome piece of work. It's been brewing for a long time. And at the end of last year, we said, no, we've just got to do this. So we planned a series of wānanga for March, April, May, and then of course we had a COVID surge that time, around about that time last year, so that made life a little bit interesting. But we got there. Not only did we get there, but we've actually won awards with this plan since then. So I'm just going to take you through that piece of mahi. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge our koike. You know, when you come to our marae and you see our pai there, and you've got our kai karanga doing her thing, and you've got our kai kōrero doing their thing, those are really, really, really important roles, and it's because of people like Manu and people like Rowan and people like Kahu who spoke to you this morning, and people like Maria, who was our kai karanga. They're our backbone. They're the ones that make us strong and say, that's the direction to go in. And then we've got the boots on the ground over here who do the mahi, and then you've got the people like me that are kind of in between doing that translation of strategy into action. So I just want to acknowledge our koike for their strength and support of our mahi. He toko tū moana mō Maketū Climate Adaptation Plan. Now, out here in our estuary and just on the foreshore, there's a couple of rocks that the Tarawa Waka anchored itself to. And that's our whakatauki for our climate change plan. We will be the rocks that our people can anchor to for a survivable future. So that's the name of our plan. Got the right button? Nope. There we go. So our vision for our climate change plan is the Maketū community is prepared for, can adapt and will be resilient to the changing climate. You'll recognise this. Yeah, this is this one just out here. So this is our why. So this was 2018, and we've got a whole heap of pictures all over Facebook from just last Sunday. So it's happening, it's getting worse, it's getting more frequent. We are there. Climate change is here. We all know that. So let's get cracking. There's our cliffs falling down. Mokoiwi, we're exposed. Rowan missed a beautiful day yesterday because she was busy organising karakia for the latest batch of koiwi that needed to be taken out because another cliff face fell down and because of the heavy rain. Here's our marae right on the estuary. You guys would have all seen the maps, the water inundation maps. We're right in the middle of one of those lines. We're on the wrong side of the line. There's 40 properties in Maketū that are in the flood zone, and that's not counting the houses up along the cliff. So, I mean, we're all there saying, how long do you think we've got? Oh, with a bit of luck, we might have 30 years. We're preparing our kids, say, enjoy it, because that's about how long we've got with this house, 30 years. That's another, I can't remember when that one flooded. It was another event altogether. So here's a lovely quote. Climate change impacts are irreversible with 40% of the world's population vulnerable. We've adapted before and we can adapt again. And that was a quote that I got off our Jimmy over here. So that's our philosophy. Like, we came from the islands on a waka and we left the islands because overpopulation, not enough kai, too many fights. So we did it. We adapted, we came here, we set up a new life, and we simply have to do that again. So we've developed our strategic priorities here, and we've got 5 interconnected strategic priorities. There's the security and self-sufficiency, that's basic. There's the collective knowledge and wisdom. Actually, between us, we know what we have to do. Caring for our home, manaaki kainga, and caring for our lands, and caring for our water. Kainga, whenua, wai. So I'm just going to run through these quickly, but actually the piece I want you to take away from this is the process that we went through to get here. So we held 5 hui. We decided right from the start that this would be an iwi-led process, not iwi being the plug-in after everything else had been determined. and not being a process whereby one of the 3 councils that we have to engage with here in Maketu comes and tells us what to do, or one of the government departments decides that they've got some money on climate change, so they're going to come out and send some consultants out to do their thing. No, we want to do this, but it had to be iwi-led. So our first wānanga was iwi only. So we spent our time here on the marae, we called in all the iwi that have got connections to Maketu, and we said, right, this is what we're seeing, how are we going to respond to that? And one of the reasons we wanted to do that is that there's a lot of mamae associated with losing our kaimoana out here, our beautiful lands. There's a lot of mamae, and we just needed to have that time by ourselves to say, okay, we can do this. It's hard, but we can do this. So we did that, and we developed some core values that underpin the whole plan. And then the next hui we had, we called it Climate Change 101. We got an external in, because sometimes it's better in a small community to get an external in. So we got a climate change, he doesn't call himself a climate change expert or scientist, but Justin Ford Robertson, if any of you have come across him, he's operated internationally on climate change and contributed to some of the international reports on climate change in his career. He's retired now, and what he's doing is he's setting up a bolt hole for his family in the bush down in Portuguese somewhere. That's how he's spending the rest of his life, is setting up so his kids have got somewhere where they can survive. And when you look at the eyes of these scientists and they're scared, you're thinking, what are we doing? There's really only one thing you do right now, and that's get yourselves a bolt hole and start developing some kind of survival strategy for yours and your loved ones. Well, we're trying to do it on an iwi community-wide basis. So anyway, we got him, and he did the Climate Change 101, which was great, because at the beginning of the hui, we still had people saying, oh, my wife dragged me to this hui, this climate change stuff is all rubbish. Classic climate change denialists. So he took us from there right through to, this is what emissions are, the ETS is all about, and this is how we can do stuff. And so that was great, and he did that in the space of, an hour and a half. And then we all had kai together, and it was a really good way. That hui was open to the whole community. So there were iwi there, but we opened it right to the whole community. Remember, COVID was there, so people had to Zoom in online. And we got to a space by the end of that second hui that we were all saying, oh yeah, wow, maybe we do have to move the marae. Well, what am I going to do about my batch? There was all that conversation started happening. Now the third hui was really interesting. What we decided to do with that one was we sent the pānui out, and we got all the agencies to come to us. Because otherwise we'd have to go around all the agencies, and we don't have time for that. So it was great. We had Bay Plenty Regional Council, we had Western Bay Plenty District Council, we had MPI, MBE, MOE, MFE, TPK. But I'll just drop this in here. This isn't the main part of my presentation. We didn't have TCC. I did send the pānui out and got this really weird email back saying, actually, our boundary stops at the sand dunes at Tumukai-Tuna, so we won't be there. And Karen said, I'm going to come anyway. So that was a little bit disappointing, because when iwi send out an invitation to attend, we kind of expect you to come, and it doesn't have to be the head sherangs. I mean, Karen was going to come anyway. Why not get her to come in an official capacity? It wouldn't have hurt for TCC to be at the table as well. But anyway, I'll just leave that there, because, like I say, you need to know, but it's not the main take today. So we had all the agencies here, and they brought all their information. Bay Plenty Regional Council had a report that had NIWA, just had a report from NIWA, so we had all this updated information, and that engagement was awesome. They got to know us, to know that we were serious, and we got access to all their information and their strategies so that we could kind of see, okay, that's how we plug in. Then the fourth wānanga, that was our traditional wānanga, what are our priorities, which way do we want to go, and that's how we drafted this. The 3 facilitators for those wānanga were myself, Jimmy and Alva Conroy, who most of you will know. And we're all
we're not newbies at facilitation. So we kind of all went into this that day thinking, yes, well, we'll try and boil it down to 3 key priorities. And we used a couple, the old Post-it notes. And every time we went through one of those cycles, we'd come up with like 10 or 12 priorities. We're scratching our heads saying, project plan's this big, can't do that, we've got to prioritise. But in the end, we stopped fighting that and said, actually, that's what Makatu is telling us. It's all a priority. So when I show you our 5 priorities, and I haven't got there yet, our 12 key actions, and you're thinking, wow, how can a small community do that? Well, we're saying, how can we not? Because it's all important. The infrastructure is just as important as the marakai. It's all important. So that's where we got to, and then the final hui was just the ratification after, we took away everything, drafted it up. Everyone said, yes, that's what we said, that's what we want, that's the direction we want to go into. We had a little celebration. So we got through these. So I'm just going to flick through those. So these are our priorities and the outcomes. So it was reasonably, you have to excuse me for coming around the back here, I didn't bring a table in. And these are our priority projects. Now, you guys will see yourselves in some of this, okay? And this is how we connect with you. So if you think of that Venn diagram, what we're telling you is these are our priorities. You guys know your priorities. We'll find them on your website. But somewhere in there, your priorities and our priorities, they'll intersect. That's where we want to engage with you. That's where we want to work with you on. I'm going to give you a copy of this plan, so I'm not going to read through these. And then, like any good community development project, we've got a backbone to put in place that's going to just pull it all together and make it happen. Although I do have to say that Makatu's not new, so those priority projects, there's already a lot of mahi happening. I mean, most of you will know Laura Ray, I've heard of her. She is just fabulous. She does the doing. There's projects that are happening around the environment, around education. There's a good emergency response group here in Makatu. So there's lots of bits and pieces that are happening. And what we'll do is we'll bring all of that together under a climate change umbrella, and we'll identify where the gaps are and start focusing on those. And core to it are our underpinning values. So we start off with kotahitanga, collective action. We're stronger together. Tikanga, absolutely fundamental. We must take a tikanga approach to this. Our Māori values actually will inform strategy, and that's not unique for Makatu. New Zealand is much richer as you start seeing our tikanga process and our values coming through in everyone's work. Maramatanga, it's all about our collective knowledge, manaakitanga, caring for each other, kaitiakitanga, safeguarding our future. Whanaungatanga, our connectivity, that's actually our strength, is that we reach, you heard it this morning in the Whai Kōrero, all those linkages and connections. And most important, right up the top there, rangatiratanga, self-determination. We know what we need to do for Makatu, and we welcome your support and assistance, and we will carry on and do what we need to do. And yeah, so it's all about mitigation and adaptation, which is something you guys are all familiar with, and we are out of denial mode. Yay. So that's the plan, and we put together a lovely book which we will present to you. So we thought that was that, and then someone sent it off to the New Zealand Planning Institute Awards, and we sent it all down on the Wednesday night and collected the Best Practice Award, which we thought was really flash. I know, but wait, there's more. And that was in Christchurch, and so we all came home, and then got a phone call 8 o'clock on Friday night from Alva, who was still down there. And I was thinking, what's she doing? I know there's a big dinner that night. She's ringing me at 8 o'clock. Well, must be something wrong. So anyway, she's ringing me. I say, what? She said, we just won the Supreme Award. So up against all these, well-funded government, council, plans that all went into the mix. Lo maketu. That little plan we won. The Supreme Award, which was awesome. And I have to mihi to our Tauranga Moana relations, because we weren't there. They all stood up on our behalf, and a big rendition of Te Arawa Air, so we'll have to reciprocate at some stage in the future, no doubt. So yes, we won the Supreme Award, and what they picked up was, there's a flash booklet, and we've got a 2-minute video if we can find it, to show you. Those were the artefacts that we sent in when we were invited to submit. But actually what they really liked about it was our process. It was the process by which we got to where we got to that is what lit their fires, was what lights our fire. And we do have a little video to show you.
HDMI?
Got that one?
So just as that's getting set up and acknowledgements, one of you guys have done amazing. We're really proud of you guys, and that was part of why we wanted to come out here as well. So the commissioners have been on a journey in their short time here around the different marae, and this marae, I talked to Whenua about it as well, was one that we hadn't made it to yet. So it was the perfect segue for that part of it. Just a couple of things before the video plays that I thought worth highlighting, and I think you've done it really well, is about, there's this crossover of the false boundaries, especially in our Māori sort of view about where our different authorities may lay. But with information like this, and the process by which you've got there is also attractive, I think, to us. It's more confidence for us to say, how could we extend the way we're thinking to be able to reach out. So as an example, when I see Manaaki Wai up there, it makes me think about the importance of all the mahi we're doing at Waiari, which then feeds into the kaituna, which then comes down over here. So whilst it might be something we're doing outside of the region, it's still within your guys' realms of influence and your takiwā, then we have something to connect that back to say, well, we might be a little bit limited to coming right in here and getting stuck in over here, but we can encourage our neighbours, and there are some things that flow through and cross some of these, the lines that go into different borders and boundaries. The process, wānanga, it has been the secret to heaps of our successes, having wānanga, having people come out to these environments and have that, but also hosting our iwi and hapu, as we were talking earlier on, back into council and making that an easier environment. So in both places, the more we spend time together doing that is great, and then hearing you guys have that inclusive wānanga around it. I'm glad Kieran came, and I did want to say, don't worry for takawangas. If we came, don't worry, they're going to have to get it behind us. But I don't know who said no, but that's part of what we're working on too, is just to say, hey, let's keep broadening our understanding so that we're thinking about you guys when we're doing something that might seem quite far away. So,
but I really appreciate
awesome.
Your kōrero on that, because we think of you as ours.
Yeah.
So when we talk about engaging with Crown government entities, TCC's on our list. Western Bay of Plenty Regional Council, TCC. So we think of you as ours, and for all the same reasons you just said.
Awesome.
Are we good to go?
Maybe. We're going to give it a crack. See how the streaming's going.
For Te Arawa, Maketu is special as the landing place of the Te Arawa Waka. So we have that long-standing connection to Maketu. We also have a large community that live here as well. So this climate change adaptation plan is really important. It's iwi-led and community-driven. It's a plan that is being decided by those who live here and those who have that connection.
A few years ago, it was really highlighted to us the importance of climate change. The highlight came when a slip occurred on the cliffs. Ancient bones were uncovered. It became a really important thing to us when we realised that other
internet. In the floods on Sunday, our internet was blown out, so Kieran's having to hotspot. So you might not get to see the whole lot today.
Well, that's local.
Of significance to us. Our sites, our wahi tapu, our urupa, and even our marae could also be impacted by climate change. One of the priorities that I find really interesting and important too is the retention through mātauranga, through education, is the retention of our culture, our cultural practices, our understanding of places and names, and the connection to our taia.
This is an iwi-led project, but it's for the whole community. Makatua is very susceptible to the impacts of climate change. We're low-lying, so the water inundation threat is real. So we really just need to come together as a community and see how we can best respond. And that's what the plan does. It brought us all together so that we can sort out our priorities together and work out together what the next steps are. Look, at the end of the day, we're doing this for our children, our mokapuna's children. We need to do everything we possibly can to make this a survivable future for them. That's it.
So the final plan, is that an iwi plan or is it a community plan or a bit of both?
We say that it's an iwi-led community plan.
No.
Probably so just the final thing that I want to leave you guys with in terms of this piece of mahi is we need to have the conversation about managed retreat. And I know people don't want to do that because it means money, but we need to have that conversation. We need to figure out how we can take the 40 properties that we know that they flooded on Sunday. Those 40 properties we know are going to flood. So let's get cracking. Come on, let's go. Let's do this. And I know that particular discussion falls out of your immediate realm, but we need to have the discussion. And by you guys having the discussion, it does encourage Western Bay and Bay Community Regional Council to have that discussion with us and government to have that discussion. So I know they're going to use Tairāwhiti as a bit of a test case. There's a bit of, managed retreat conversations happening there. We need to have those conversations. We need to have them now. We need to recognise the marae as historic places that have value, and we need to lift this marae up and
It's probably more Hawke's Bay, so I'm on the task force for local government, and it's probably more relevant to the marae in Paitani, in Tongoira, in Waiahik, where it is ancestral land. They don't have anything else, so they have to move. But where do they go? And so that I think Tairāwhiti's really only Tokomaru Bay. So you're more akin, I think, to the Hawke's Bay. And you're right, we do need to have the conversations because where do you go? It's not only how you go, but it's where do you go, and then how do you retain your links to the whenua.
Absolutely, and there's just so much marae having that conversation, like from our side, with the marae committee and the marae trustees, those conversations are still just a drop on the agenda. People don't want to have those conversations, and with this particular marae, it is a relatively new marae. We were part of the four marae that were up on the hill, back in the day. And when the whānau realised that actually we need to exit from the shared marae and build a whakaue-centric marae, one of our kuia, Ngātai Tapsel, she sold some shares from one of the farms in Rotorua to purchase this land to build the marae. Now what happens to her legacy when we leave? So there's just all this mamai. So I'm really pleased that you know, there needs to be that thinking, and obviously in your council, you've got that thinking. So just really encouraging you to keep having those discussions. And although your discussions might be geographically for this area, actually there'll be lots of, you know, tendrils that come out, because it's certainly a conversation that we're going to be pushing all the authorities that be to have with us. We are fortunate that we've got collective farmlands just stone's throw away from here, so the where will we go has got a relatively easier answer than for other places, but there's still a lot of the how, and you're absolutely right, there's the tikanga in the how as well, which we, you know, that has to be central to our thinking. So managed retreat is on the agenda. Just one last thing for me, so I flicked a little email around, said, now we've got TCC coming tomorrow, what do you guys want to talk, what do you want me to talk? There's only one thing that people want me to talk to you about, and that's tūmukai tuna. We cannot understand why you are allowing this to happen. There are really good reasons why there's no development on there. It's sensitive environmentally, it's sensitive culturally. There's really good reasons why you don't want to do a big development on that strip of land. I'm not going to get into the detail there because there's other people in this room, yourselves included, that know far more about it than I do. But you know, really pause and think about what you are enabling. There's been lots of mistakes made over the years. We think this is another one of them. We think this is a big mistake that's going to be made, and we kind of feel it. You know, we get a little bit emotional, a little bit angry, because we can see that we're the ones that are going to be left holding the baby. We think it's unsustainable, and who's going to be cleaning that up over the next 100 years? It's going to be our kids and our grandchildren, just the way that we are cleaning up the rubbish that's coming down the Kaituna from Rotorua, cleaning up the rubbish on our beaches from that wreck out there, still today. So, can you tell them that I said that, please? Done my duty, executed my duty, and that's really all I have for you today. I mean, there's a whole lot more, but those are the key points. That's Ngāti Whakau ki Makatū. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you for that presentation. It was really fantastic, and congratulations on those receiving those awards. I just want to ask if there are any discussion or questions, further questions.
Kia ora, Rona, for your presentation. That was great. I just feel that it's ironic that you're asking, you know, TCC, BAP Regional Council for help when they're the ones that need to learn how to do things better. And I think your plan is a step in the right direction for you know, these big organisations. So you know, thanks very much, and we'll be taking a leaf out of your guys' book for Marae Whaero. So yeah, we're having the same conversations with TCC as well. So kia ora whānau.
Kia ora. I just want to mention to you as well, an amazing plan, an amazing initiative. Pulling together the community and that area to deliver something that will hopefully deliver some tangible benefits, not just today, but actually into the future. One thing that kind of springs to mind, and you did raise it, is that from a Te Ao Māori perspective, we have traditions of adaptation. And I think for a lot of our whānau, having those conversations are quite challenging, particularly when you've been in that area for a long time. Your marai's been there for over 100 years, 200 years, and our whānau have lived in those areas. And one of the challenges for council, I think, is those things need to come from our communities themselves. So rather than councils coming in and saying, you know, we've got a plan for you, actually, ideally for those conversations to be had by our Māori whānau and communities themselves. I just think about Waikari. Waikari was relocated. Upureora on Matakana. It's quite close to the edge of the cliff. That's been shifted a number of times. one of our original whare over at Utimoto was relocated to Whenua. So we have these traditions, and I think it's been brave enough to have those conversations. Actually, these things are not new to us. Things are happening all the time, and we need to be in a place to face those challenges, have those difficult conversations, and adapt. So, I do want to mihi to you in terms of what you've laid out, and it's a challenge for all of us to start thinking and planning about how we manage these types of challenges into the future.
Kia ora, Bruno. Yes, kia ora. Like, that was a great presentation, all right. I can't say much more than our previous speakers. Well, I'm thankful that your marae, through you, and your hapu here have been clear about te tumu in that. Because I'd like to know if any of the trustees are here, because that's an opportunity for them to be here to show that they had support to show the council. But they're not here, and you've spoken for your marae and your hapu. And as far as I'm concerned, it's clear cut. So I'm going to be pushing for TCC to leave that area alone. So, kia ora.
I just had a couple of little observations to add into the kōrero. I guess what I hear from the whānau out here is, although a lot of the activity they'll need to do will be outside of our region, one of the things I think we already talk about is leading the way on some of the innovative ways that a council can contribute to those solutions, and it might be around how we can progress things at places like Whareroa. I think it'll have a positive impact over here for these guys to utilise around some of our neighbours. And I also, just in case it wasn't plain, I think the theme that we've always talked about at Takawanga is that in the past, those examples of adaptation that Shad has raised have been where you have that opportunity to adapt because you have that hapu estate, and a lot of the time those iwi or hapu, they no longer have that estate to move on to. You can hear, I think, with Ruana already addressing that they've got some options, for them. So that's a part they are able, in their particular unique situation, able to play in that. And so I think, each time we're going to have to address that. I just wanted to also reinforce one of the points that she did have, and I've seen this at play. I just wanted to say it out loud, is when you have a plan like this that's come in iwi and community led, then it's a much safer place to have that conversation. I've been around conversations where councils have tried to do the right thing and be led into it, and absolutely got slapped from Waharoa to wherever you want to slap them to. So it's really powerful when you guys have done what you've done to be able to say, we've got that part. Because the part that a council will never touch is the tikanga aspect. And to have wānanga and then lead on to where you can have that support at tikanga, that's usually when unfair, I'm just going to say that out loud, accusations get pointed towards councils about, how dare you say we do this? Or we'll tell you how we go about that. So I think that, again, I just want to acknowledge that, because the power of the mahi you've done, and especially through wānanga where it has been inclusive, is to be able to say, hey, we've actually had that kōrero here, we need your support in how to make that happen, but behind us, not grabbing us and pushing us somewhere, to get in behind us, and we're clearly showing you where we're going. If you're comfortable with that, get in behind it. So, it's awesome the mahi that you guys have done, and I know we've got some stuff that's on our plate and flying around that, we'll deal with, but I think we can show leadership when we have those right opportunities to do so, and I think, when iwi and hapu indicate a particular pathway, that's a hell of a lot easier for council to get in behind and support.
Last call for any questions, comments.
I just want to make one final point too. I think from a commission perspective, we've always been mindful of these boundaries. I mean, the artificial lines on a map that, I live here and I pay no rates there, but actually I work over there. And one of the things we're always conscious of, even talking to our our neighbours is trying to talk in a way where we're not talking about boundaries. Our communities don't see boundaries. We see boundaries. And our hapu, they don't care about those boundaries either. In our iwi, whether you're on one side of the road or the other. And that's been one of our focuses, like coming here, some could say, well, actually, Maketu's not in TCC. Well, actually, in terms of the relationship and the impact and the connection that TCC has, we do have a relationship with Maketu, and we do need to respect that and honour that, which is one of the reasons why we've come here. We've done that at Whetu with they're in Western Bay, but who cares? So that's kind of the approach we've taken, and one of the reasons why we thought it was important to come here.
Shed. The relationship with Rangapū, especially. I first went to Rangapū, I think, Puhiraki, you might remember it, was back in 2005. And I was sort of me and Greg Rolliston.
Yep.
Yeah. The only representatives, and our contact at Te Rangapū was with Rangapū. And we're still here. Yeah. So I know these relationships were, while people sort of looked at us with a bit of a jaundiced eye, those were quite important relationships for us. But we were sort of fighting on our own for things for Maketu with other agencies. We still stuck with Rangapū right through. So I'm a what you would call I've been here for 30 years in Maketu nearly, and people when I first arrived there asked me for my passport. Our own relations, and because I was wanting to get involved. The only way I could get involved with the Maketu community was I worked for Internal Affairs. I worked for the Lottery Board, and we were able to build a marae here, New Wharekai. And we did a lot internally too. But it's just that sort of getting. Our people here are not the easiest people to deal with and to work with. I eventually found out that my great-grandfather, whose land I live on, and that was flooded last week, is out here. And he was born here, my great-grandfather. And so, I sort of, with humour, said, oh, I don't need a passport. He's my passport, my great-grandfather. But it's just that working with agencies and that, across the board here, I found it was quite an education, especially when I came from a government background, and working with the people was also an education. Yeah. And using my knowledge of certain people like Tony Fisher and Howard Palmer, we all worked together, so I could come and work around here, work with people that I knew. And we respected each other's identity and where we came from. So, yeah, and that sort of helped me as I worked around here with the different agencies. And with like the Royal Army, who have that capacity to bring people to respect each other at that point. And respect that point of view. So it's been a good education for me.
Kia ora.
I just, well, first of all, I wanted to congratulate you on your presentation and the plan, and I think the process that you've described exactly represents why you won the Supreme Court. That's why I asked, is it just iwi, or is it, you've got your whole community supporting that, and that's no mean feat from my knowledge of Maketu. But I think there is a huge opportunity for us over the next 6 or 7 months as a Western-based sub-region, we developed that spatial plan, of which an integral part is the Tangata Whenua spatial plan, and Elva's helping with that. And as we put those two together, we are going to find some conflicts. So through smart growth, of which Western Bay Regional Council, TCC, all those Crown agencies are all sitting around the table focused on growth and how we manage growth and the transport links that enable that. And we are going to come up against those environmental and the questions that people from your have been asking you to raise with us about places like Tutumu. And that forms part of the discussions that we've had with Tapaweka around the Waiari. So that creates a good opportunity for us to talk about, what the pressures we have and the concerns you have and how we put the two together, and make sure that whatever happens, because we've been told by our people too in TCC, the most important thing for them is the environment. So how do we then allow for growth, which we can't stop, but how do we work together to make sure that happens in a way that has the protection of the environment at the top of our minds, and so that we don't leave, if Tutumu is developed, because the landowners decide that that's what they want to do, that it's done in such a way that our grandchildren aren't left to clean up a mess. So I think that is a huge opportunity for us, and that's a Western Bay. That's not a TCC or a Western Bay district. That is us in this sub-region, which sort of goes, I never quite know where that boundary is either. But that's important too, because it has to link in with the east, and it has to link in with Rotorua. And so thank you for this, because this is an important part, albeit a small part of that wider plan, but perhaps it gives us some guidance on how we can ensure that we get that wider discussion happening. So thank you. And I can see where your daughter gets her skills and talents from.
Right, thank you, Anne. If there are no further comments or questions, can I have a mover that the Tangata Whenua Tauranga City Council Committee receives the Ngāti Whakaue Ki Makatu presentation? Moved by Boiraki, second by Shadrach. All in favour? Good. We'll move now through the agenda, and kia ora, Shad, state your departure. Next item of business is the chairperson's report. Just one comment that I do, a couple of comments that I do want to make on it, just to acknowledge the events of Te Ranga and the commemoration today, and also the acknowledgement for the Tauranga City Council Otamataha Trust receiving the Wakahaurua Award. I thought they were interesting comparisons, positive interesting comparisons, because the Te Ranga, as I've referred to it as the aftermath of Te Ranga, represents a dark stain in our history. But things like the Te Manawataki or Te Papa is the counter to that, and shows what can be done by two willing partners. And I do want to acknowledge the mana enhancing aspects, the enhancement of the mana of the hapu involved in Otamataha Trust, and by doing that, enhance the mana of Tauranga City Council being enhanced. So,
Kia ora, Tony.
now, do I have any? Is there any discussions or comments in respect of the report? Can I have a mover that the chairperson's report be accepted?
Aye.
Fitty, seconder. Stephen. All in favour? Carried. We'll move now to the Rangapu Mana Whenua report from Ngātire. And Kohiraki, you're going to speak to that.
Ākero mō tātou e toa te nei i te kukapō tēnei rā. E tuatahi, kei te mea atu ki a koe e. Ki a koutou ngā whanaunga o Ngāti Whakaue. Whānau, no reira, tēnei te mihi aroha ki a koutou ngā kaumātua, ngā kuia, ngā pākeke. Oku whanaunga no reira, mihi aroha ki a koutou i tēnei, i roto i tēnei ki tēnei whare o tātou o whakaua kaipapa, no reira. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. E nā nei, first of all I'd like to just congratulate everyone on the report that you gave on behalf of Ngāti Whakaue. Awesome report, great, and you know, to focus on what you've spoken about was really good in terms of the dialogue of environmental things. And of course that award, I was fortunate enough to be here as well with the Tauranga Moana one, and yeah, we really leapt joy as well. But you know, it was great night for all of the Bay of Plenty. So kia ora for that, and that's of course is part of this report which I'm now reading in terms of which Anthony just spoke about, the Wakahaurua reward. Awesome to finally, in terms of, you know, Tauranga Moana, as Tony said, I went to the Taranga celebration this morning, and you know, the feelings that I got when I walked up, not only about our tupun who died up there, but also of things that have occurred since, in the last 9 years since we had the 150th anniversary, where we set out to that it's time for reconciliation. And so it's sort of heading towards that way. And for it to happen in a city like Tauranga Moana was like, wow. We all know what sort of history they've got, or we've got. However, that Manawataki o Te Papa is something that personally I'm proud of, because I am the chair of Otamataha Trust, and also being part of the team that's been working with council, the commissioners, for the last 2.5, 3 years. Focusing further on, we've had a lot of workshops in terms of tangata whenua having input into all the council projects that are going on, and it really has accelerated. I mean, I've been in the Rangapu right from the beginning. I can't remember when that was, but it's been a long time. I think Raymond was still working over in Tauranga Moana at that time when we started doing mahi over there, and so it's proven by the amount of work mahi that we do with council, not only with their governance but with their staff as well. The other usual things in terms of the why, all the current things there, the election coming up in Tauranga Moana, we have a seat award, and so we're focusing on getting votes in for tangata whenua, amongst our tangata whenua, to find out who's putting their hand up to be the candidate and supporting a process that gets the right person there. As well as putting candidates in the other seats also. Our course on directorship training, and from a Māori perspective in governance, and that is, as you see in the report, just completed part 2, and that is good, especially for members who are attending that development course. It's also made us aware of how we have people coming through who do want to get into those governance positions, and if we can help them get that sort of directorship type training, it helps them in their own personal development, as well as the development for tangata whenua at large and mana whenua within specific hapu and marae areas. And the rest of it is the key priorities that we're looking at. As you can see here, you can read it for yourself. It's quite a very diverse mixture of different projects and topics that we like to get our teeth into, and represented by the calibre of the people we have sitting around the table. There's still a few of us mature ones, and a lot of new ones who are there. But I think the younger ones outnumber the others now, which is a good thing. But that is the summary of my report on behalf of the Chair, Matiri Duncan, who couldn't make it today, and invite any of my colleagues who may want to add any comments and take questions.
Just Fitty asked if he's an old one or a young one.
Fitty,
I gave him the wrong
I don't
answer.
know. If you keep putting those lizards through your hair, you could be young.
Kia ora Kohi, so can I answer?
It's a question and an invitation, I guess. So just picking up on your elections 2024. So the commissioners, we're just starting discussions now about perhaps trying to organise a candidates college at the beginning of next year, early February, and getting people like the IOD to come and talk about governance, maybe the media. So trying to do a bit of training or a bit of making sure that there's good information for people who are considering standing. And so it would be good for us to have some conversations with you guys about whether you want to join in, because it would also be really good to have some tikanga as part of that. So maybe we could join forces in some way, and so perhaps at a meeting come and once we've got some plans and times, and we can come and have a chat with you about that.
Oh, great.
Because you'll still be doing your thing with your wider hapu about your candidates, but you know we can work together on that.
Thank you, Anne. That's an awesome idea.
Straight away I can see we've got a few candidates that could be
okay to have a go at it, coming to this thing that you're talking about.
It'll put some of them off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we talk about the workload, but at least then they've got a good picture of what.
Good, thank you.
I think just a couple of things to add in there from my perspective. Dr. Jim Mathers, who did the Kotahitanga governance training from IOD, and I thought he did a really good job of having a kōrero to Rangapu members and the wider Māori attendees in a really balanced fashion, and he might be a good person to reach out to and be part of that, and good wide varied background. And probably I've been talking to Marie about an invitation from Rangapu off the back of the second to last week to invite to have the commissioners come in and have a wānanga together. I think we're just timed for that. So I think that is planned for in early September.
Okay.
So that might be good timing to have a kōrero and then bring it to a head there.
Yep.
And that's probably one of a number of good chats to have. Three Waters is probably another one that'll be good. Hey, how are you guys feeling? How are Rangapu feeling as well? So just signalling that it's coming up as a joint wānanga, that'll be good.
Thanks. Thank you.
Kia ora.
So, Mr. Chair, that's Komatu Taku Kōrero. Can I move the report?
Yes, you can move.
So I'll move our report then.
It's moved by Pohirake, second. Seconded by Nathan. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. So now we're moving on to the Kano and your team presentation discussion on the Tangata Whenua action list.
Yeah. Kia ora tātou, e mihi ana ki a tātou i tēnei wā, ki a koutou o te haukainga. Tō koutou wa manaakitani tēnei rā, tēnei tanahi. Yeah, so you'll see our report, a little bit of a modified version, try to have a go at a traffic light system. I must say I wasn't sure where we're going to put oranges, reds and greens, and I think part of it is that, you know, as Kapawanga, we often are advocating for some of these things to progress, but we're in the hands of other work programs and other budgets to some degree. But what I've tried to do is say...
Heading off with excuses.
Yeah, well... I need to rationalise where I might have put an orange, red or a green, so don't worry. So what I've tried to do is said, green for me is where I think we've got a good full charge of steam ahead. So you'll see we're probably a bit reluctant to sing our own praises or blow a trumpet, but there's a few greens there where we think we're making good progress, I think. The yellows, you know, sometimes it's in our hands, sometimes in others. It's moving in the right direction, but we probably put yellow because we kind of would like that to be moving faster, but it's still burning along. And then the reds are probably a proposal of, at the moment it looks like a little bit of a dead end. Not to say it's the wrong idea or anything wrong with it, but it may be more outside of our lane than we can actually do much to control. And so ideally the reds are, you guys might decide each time we meet, hey, we could just probably take that off this list. And I guess what we're worried about is that we're going to end up with a 450-page list over time, so it might be wise to drop off a few as we go. As we move through them, I must admit too, I've put here refer to pics at Whenua, and I forgot to get those together. But it's been pretty cool seeing how the cycleway team are working with Whenua Marae and just doing some of the simple things that are really mutually beneficial. And funnily enough, one of the really plain things, and the commissioners will know this from your visits out there, when you go in that driveway, not having a four-wheel drive is probably a hazardous thing. But at the moment, it's really well done at the moment. And it's just been a simple sharing of the millings from some of the works that are there. It probably saved us money from shipping them off somewhere else. And the team's done a really good job to make a nice smooth entrance there. And it'll just keep moving up into the marae roads that lead to the Kohanga Reo and some of the other community facilities. I will share a picture with you after this because I think you'll see what I mean, but that would have been good.
So why is that orange?
Well, because we've still got heaps of other stuff that's sort of codependent. So we've got there, the next step is resurfacing from Wakakotahi, which I understand is scheduled for this spring. So once that happens, we'll be able to trigger into moving through some of the other ones. But also the cycleway team, they'll get different opportunities as they go. So we're doing the cycleway back underneath the bridge, and that's moving along at quite a good pace at the moment, which is good. But as that works is happening, there's different opportunities. So more and more of those millings are available to address some of the entranceway issues at the marae, but that'll just keep moving along together. So that's probably a good example and a good question around whether that's yellow or not. As we move along, why we've put a green on Pitirihama Marae is because we're pretty stoked that we're getting this global resource consent together to work out how we can enable that housing going forward. So that's been a significant move forward. Pito and Hino looks like it's in a sale process. So, you know, the request to return back to Hapui probably isn't an open door at the moment. And a little bit same with the wetland restoration. We've had some discussions and connections, but there's probably not a lot we can currently do at the moment. Same over the page with the provision of a children's playground out at Waimapu Marae. So essentially what happened is we don't have anywhere we can put it on. We want to be careful about suggesting as a council to the Haukainga that they should free up some land to put that playground on. So we don't want to push that and say that's what they should do. So we've said to them, if you have somewhere that you would want to do that, then you probably need to say that to us as opposed to us say that to you. But we have connected them with the right people. Probably been a little bit slow on the footpath and lighting stuff, but again, pushing those teams along a little bit. A couple of things that did come up of interest in the last few days is probably at Whareroa. And we've had some follow-ups around the gateway to reduce some of the traffic and, shall we say, delinquent behaviour going up and down the roadway. So it looks like that has had some investigative stuff, but then had a bit of a roadblock, and we've asked them to prioritise that and get that done as soon as possible. we're asking them, the traffic team, to get that done before the summer arrives, because then you're going to have the impact on the fishermen. So we're still working with them so that they can tell us where that end and target date for that will be. But we're saying don't let it drift into September, October, November, because we keep our whareroa whānau waiting and impacted by things, but also we don't want to have a surprise for our fishing community. So that's where that's at.
What's the problem with putting the gate in?
I think it just got to a point where they investigated how they were going to do it, and then fitting it in and around the rest of the work program. So we've asked them to look at that carefully and say that might be a good one that we could get done pretty quickly. So they've agreed with that. Obviously it's been a couple of days since we've reignited that conversation. So I think I'm looking at Tuana, because I know he's done a lot of work over the last couple of days, just to say, without beating anybody up, hey, we can get this done, and there's a lot of agreement around there. So I think given it's only been a couple of days, we'll have this sorted out. The emergency exit's a bit more complicated, because there's a number of land parcels and things to cover and cross over. But again, Tuana's done a lot of work there just to say to people, okay, how do we get everybody together and make sure that goes forward. Early on in the piece, we did have Brendan Bisley, who's the Director of Traffic or Transport, and Ray Dumble have a conversation about who might project manage that. And so we're going to pull those guys back together and say, now that we've got enough of this detail, let's get into that. I have asked our legal team to meet with Hukapak in particular, because they raised the concern that if part of the emergency exit crosses their land, they become liable for the health and safety risks. And so the legal team are saying they can't contract as a landowner out of health and safety. However, there are examples of ways that we can build into an easement some sort of joint arrangements where we're sharing some of that in good faith. So we've asked the legal team to look into that. So that'll be one of the main hurdles. That one will take a little bit longer. It requires constructing a bridge over the culvert. Not forgetting there is still the existing exit is still there, but it just requires to go closer to Lauta than we would like. So that's what we're trying to resolve. So they can at the moment. They've got keys to go through a gate to go up to the existing bridge, which is a bit further along, but it just takes them alongside one of the highest risk businesses, being Lauta, with their chemicals that they hold on site. So they do have an exit, for example, if a bus crash type scenario happened again, and they do need to get out there in emergency, but it could be better.
Okay.
So those are probably my updates really in that space. Also, the other one is probably a small update in the housing arena. We've had a pretty steady stream of 1s and 2s accessing the DC's grant.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
I think we'll probably be nearing the 15 or 16 mark that have tapped into it, and so we're pretty regularly getting those through. The latest one we had was a home in Matapihi, and as an example, where it was 32k that is charged as DCs, they end up paying about 4. So it's a significant difference, and in that case what it's done is it's pushed forward when they would be able to get their home done.
Right.
So we're getting plenty of that, and the building community is getting comfortable with it. As an example of where the pipeline has been building up, and I know I've sent through to you guys a document that you weren't able to open up, and we've got to catch up on it, but as an example, the work our Papakainga advisor has been doing is with the Kaitimapo blocks, and we've probably got 4 or 5 of these conversations going. And they now have a combined conversations of 5 or 6 blocks, and our conceptual planning that we've supported them with through our planning team shows about 240 homes are possible through that. So I think, and now once they get that all agreed, we'll obviously then have a document we could go to MHUD, Maihi, Te Puni Kōkiri and seek that support. But I think that's why we can see that this pipeline's going to burst through somewhere in the future. So if we think about that and that came online, and let's say 200 of those came online at somewhere between 25 and 28k per home is the subsidy that we're providing, it's going to chew that fund real fast. So that pipeline's happening there. I still need to share that with you guys so you can get a good look at that. Yeah. But it's a good example of what's happening there. What does a delay look like for Tangata Whenua? You would have noticed our whanaunga Patrick Nicholas passed away recently. He essentially was running point for those trusts alongside Tāne. I've already caught up with the likes of Pere Renui and Hori Ahumiro, who are key trustees up and around there, and others. Matire is also another key trustee up there, to say, okay, now that Patrick's passed away, you know, he would want us to carry on and see that through. But it's an example of some of the delays we will have as we have a key person like that passes away unexpectedly.
But the prize is 200
Exciting, right? And that's one of 4. So that's a kōrero at Kauchimako. There's another kōrero happening at Ranginui Road, another one with Ngāti Kahu, another one with Ngāti Hangaro, which we're progressing in a different way. So, you know, that one's probably the most progressed as well, and I think that one's probably the bigger one. I think across those, if I was to have a guess now about what that pipeline might look like, I think 400 to 450 homes wouldn't be unrealistic across those. And some of those other ones will be looking for us to sort of see how we can pull one of them through. And of course, that kind of example for the likes of MHUD and Maihi and those kinds of things, once one's done, you can kind of use that precedent. So I know we've been talking to you guys, hey, trust us. It's a bit like leaning on a wall of glad wrap. Once our finger goes through, we expect it'll sort of open up. That's an indication of where that's at. We're a little bit careful with that, and I know that Tāne's been working closely with the mahi on that spatial planning that Peel's been doing, but we are cautious on the side of the trusts and the trustees who are saying just bear with us, and we'll tell you when we're happy for that to plug into bigger and wider plans. So we're really erring on the side of that trust and confidence. So sometimes there's a little bit of that where we be a bit cagey because we're preserving that trust.
So through you, Mr. Chairman. So when Te Pio and that group are meeting with the Minister, those won't be forming part of what's presented, or
it's a bit of a moving feast. So he's got an idea via Tāne that these conversations are taking place. But for example, those trusts have said they're okay for me to share with you guys to give a sense of faith, good faith, but probably not at the point where they would hand that over to that wider spatial plan thing quite yet. I think that their confidence has been building slowly, but we'll always err on the side of our trusts and our trustees.
Yeah, you've got to. Well, we don't want to lose that.
Yeah. So it's exciting.
Yeah, no, that sounds really,
No
really
point.
good. So we might have to put more money into that Papakāinga fund. Is that what you sort of hinting at?
I think if you're so wise as to figure out solutions, we wouldn't turn them away. Yeah, I mean, I think that the truth is that we have opened up something to try and plant a seed, and I think what we're seeing is signs of growth. So I think, you know, first and foremost, with the pressure you guys are under with the LTP, is understanding we probably will see that we need to at least just keep it there, because it is a light at the end of a tunnel that is attracting more and more attention. You know, I think
is it in, because 3 years from 21 to 24, is it in business as usual? Is it continued on?
Up to $3 million, I think.
Yeah, but that's only the first thing. We put that in for 3 years.
Yeah, I think we've the 3 million sounds like we've put it into the next 3 as well.
Right.
Because it was 1.5.
Because it was 1.5.
There's two funds though.
There's two funds.
So that 3 million is the two funds.
It's the two funds.
So we've got it in for the 3 years. We need to put it in for the next 3.
Yeah. So let's just check that it's actually in for that next 3 years, because you wouldn't like to get all this way and then the fund stops.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And what you're reading is the trust, right? We're building trust and confidence, and we're erring on the side of that. Yeah. And what we don't want to do is then get to the finish line and go,
oh, sorry, there's no more money.
Put the finish line 2 meters short of the finish line. Yeah. So, we have a chance. Make sure it's
one more just because the Commissioner supported Te Reti and what they've managed to achieve in the last couple of years is 5 more houses on their block, because if you remember, we supported them in widening their road, which enabled them to put more houses on, and they'll put 5 more homes on their block and access the funds. They're a part of it as well.
And they're steady. And the other thing about Te Reti in particular is their well-known whānau that once their homes are up, are pretty keen to be advocates. So, yeah.
Good, good. That's very positive. That answers the question this morning.
Yes.
Kia ora Carlo. Any questions, Bill?
Thanks, Chair. Carlo, I'm just on issue 15, Matapihi Community Plan. Do I take it that it's the Hapu Trust who are, for want of a better word, sort of driving the preparation of that? And then secondly, is there any connection or potential connection between that work and the EV spatial planning work that the PO and others are working on?
Yeah, I don't think there's a current connection. I think the opportunity is to have it informing that work that's happening there. And I think two things are moving along at the same time. You've got the sub-regional iwi spatial planning, that where there's plans like these things, need to take those into account. Where there's gaps, they're kind of forging on. And so we have been encouraging different communities in Hapu that if you take advantage of some of the funding we do have available for them to fill those gaps, the sooner they do that, the sooner those things are aligning. So it's a bit of a mix because some are already there, some are good, some need updating, and so in this case, if we can get that done and have it informing and correlating, it just strengthens both plans. So that's the aim and the talk that we've been having out there. I'm sort of speaking to this knowing there's somebody intimately involved here, but talking about this fellow over here. But I think, you know, through the Southern Pipeline Advisory Group, it's kind of is one of the bodies that looks at Matapihi as a whole. And the discussions I've heard Hapu members talking about there, namely, and in particular Anthony on behalf of Ngāi Tūkairangi, but also Josh Gia on behalf of Ngāti Tapu, is to have that discussion with the relevant Hapu committees to support that community-wide thing. And seeing something like this, which is an open wānanga process, is inclusive of the community, because they're going to share a lot of the same concerns, is another good example for our Hapu to be able to go, okay, that's what ours will look like. Because I know the latest plan, well, the last plan that Ngāti Tapu and Ngāi Tūkairangi did together was a land use plan.
That's right.
And I think, you know, that's too narrow for what the future needs to see out in that area. So again, I know they've been talking about exactly the same process, wānanga, inclusive wānanga, leading to that wider plan. What we've got here is that last SPAG hui, the Southern Pipeline Advisory Group hui. Sorry, we're looking for etching so we can turn it into a dish. But at that last hui of that one, basically the Tangata Whenua members said we need to have that discussion with our Hapu, but we're confident that's going to come together. And so we're put onto the agenda for the next one of those is to receive that update off the back of the Hapu hui.
Yeah.
So another one that's leaning on glad wrap.
No, thank you.
Yeah, still coming to terms with that analogy.
Try it at home and you'll get it real fast.
So are the co-chairs.
So the co-chairs. Can I just, because I'm conscious that what will go on this today is from this marae, and the issue raised is around Te Tumu, and I'm just wondering whether there might be an opportunity then to get some of our planning people to come and explain some of the work that's been happening for Te Tumu around preservation of archaeological, or identification and preservation of archaeological sites, some of the natural hazard work that's been done, and some of the freshwater work that's been done.
It's in the pipeline.
Yeah.
It's in the pipeline? Okay.
And it'll be done. So,
because it will go, everything that's raised goes on to this list. So as we go around the marae, so that we keep track of it and it doesn't just fall into the air and everyone goes away and says yes, 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 and then nothing happens. As you can see, we're wanting things to happen.
I'm sure we will be arranged specifically for that.
Brad has been, Brad.
Hi.
Brad has been in touch and we're just finding a date. So we are forward leading on this.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to check so that it's not just left hanging, because it will come up.
It will go onto the sheet. Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Kia ora.
Ka pai.
Any other last call for comments, questions?
It's a
If
good
none,
work program. It's keeping you
Yeah.
busy.
I'll move.
Ruhiraki moves that the Tangata Whenua presentation updates be received.
Happy to second, Chair.
Second by Bill, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Koe anō.
Mr. Chair, I'll take my leave.
Kia ora, Ruhiraki.
Te kōrero.
Ko tai mai te wā mo te mutu o tō tātou hui huinga.
Sorry, we just had a late apology for Peter Tapsell, who has been an integral part of our climate change team. He's been trying to get here, but we haven't had much, so he's apologies.
We'll put that on the late apologies. Nō reira, kei te haere tonu te mihi kia kōtau Ngāti whakau e ki Makatū, anō koe ki Te Arawaka whānui, hei manaki hei awhi kia mātou, kia tātou hoki I runga I te āhuatanga o tēnei nohonga o te kimiti nei. Anō reira ka mihi ake tēnei kia kōtau. Hei tēnei wā, tuku atu te rākau kia kōtau, te hau kāinga, nā kōtau hei whakakapia ki tō tātou hui hui.
Kia tērā manaki tangata mea maro ke roi tēnei tēnā mātou. Kia mahe tuhu maki ki tui te kuku, tui te oro, tui te rangi maari, tui te ru whakamaua kia tīna.
Tīna.
Ui e
Tai.
Kia ora.
I'll see the action. I will let you do next line. Yeah.